there's going to be some wailing, but we've been working on this for almost 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And we've done some testing. We went to 3 professional graphic designers and we said, it's got to represent our mission and it can't be era specific. So what's the first guy come up with? And he's a good designer. I mean, his stuff is gorgeous. It was an Art Deco steam engine. And another fella that's a great designer came up with a semaphore. It's really a cool looking logo, but those are era specific.
Yes, they are.
And a third design was maybe a depot. Well, depots are kind of going out of common use today, except for the historical society. So it came back to the graphic design, and I really want to credit Jim Sacco of City Classics. I went to Jim. I found out he used to be in advertising and some stuff. And first I said we need a diamond logo to represent the NMRA's anniversary year. The Milwaukee convention logo is a round kind of Baldwin Builder's plate. It's a really nicely done logo, which left it open to commemorate a diamond anniversary. So I told Jim Sacco, I said, diamond 75. Okay. And a day or so later, he came back with a logo that became our Diamond Club pin, and now it's on everything that's going on. The convention car is the 75, but the year-long anniversary car is the Diamond logo. One side will have the Classic logo. That's what we call the old logo now, the Classic logo, like Classic Coke. And the new logo is not this, it's not the Diamond, but that's a year-long one. And so for an example of that, we've got the new logo on one side and the 75-year Diamond, the old logo on the other side and the 75-year Diamond. And Jim did all that work for us, including the car design.
Yeah.
And then I told him, I said, Jim, I kind of drew an arc and a rail, and I says, we need to do this. And a few days later, he had it close, and then we spent 6 months. Well, that's got to be a millimeter thicker, and that can't be, it's got to be at 10 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock. And good old Jim, he just kept hammering away. So Jim will be recognized here at the convention for all the great work that he did.
Very nice.
So anyway, that's a long story of what's going on here at the convention, but as far as the NMRA is concerned, we're not the guys with the new GP40 or something, but we got a story this year.
Sure, this is great. So it looks like that the NMRA is now in the 21st century with both feet.
That's a good way of putting it, and finally we're taking maybe a hint from you guys and looking at our web content a little bit more and getting that squared away. And there's some exciting things I can't even talk about yet that will add a great deal to the web content. One of the things we don't want to do, there's all these things we want to do, but one of the things we don't want to do is to compete with commercial enterprises. And the name of the magazine, Scale Rails, was chosen maybe 10 years ago as a possibility of selling the magazine in hobby shops. That was one of the thoughts. And that's on the surface, that's a noble idea because it brings the NMRA to the attention of the non-modeler, gets it out in front of them. It does a service to the hobby and all those things. That's on the surface. If you drill down just a little lower below that, you're going to find that, wait a minute, isn't this what Kalmbach does? Isn't this what Karstens does? Used to be Hunman and Randy Lee and Bob Schleicher and all those guys. 3 of the magazines disappeared recently, so maybe the idea of a general interest magazine to compete, strong word, with MR and RMC, maybe that's not a good business model. So when we looked at it from that point of view, and here Kalmbach had donated the money to form the Kalmbach Memorial Library. They write a check each year to help us support that, and that is a service to the hobby. Members and non-members can use it. And you look at the Craftsman Award that Hal Karstens had given over the years. Us having a general interest model railroad magazine and competing by hobby shop sales with them, probably not a good business plan. So now that it says NMRA magazine on a supermarket shelf, that doesn't mean anything. Well, that's okay. We're not on supermarket shelves. We're not going to be. The board has made a policy statement to that effect. And that meant that we could really work to brand the NMRA, the NMRA, the NMRA. And NMRA, incidentally, also means the National Mustang Racing Association.
Yes.
Cars.
Yes.
But somehow, we're the guys that have NMRA.org. We beat them to it. So, you know, what does NMRA mean? That's their problem. That's not our problem.
That's
we're
right.
the NMRA.org guys. So I think that with all of these changes in our business plan, our business direction, we've got a new way to go. And one manifestation of that, incidentally, is that we now have 2 vice presidents. Well, so what? Well, think about that a minute. The government model is a president and a vice president, and the vice president tries to look busy until the president gets sick or something, and then he steps in and says, I'm in charge here, right? Well, that's not necessarily a good business model, and we took a hard look at the need to fill the vacancy that was created when Alan Pollock, who has been a mainstay of the NMRA's resurrection over the last decade, Alan said, you know, I ought to step aside 2 years into my final term to let a new guy come in and get his feet wet. Well, that sort of makes it a shoe-in for the one guy that we appoint. So we've kind of almost elected your next vice president or president. And so the board took a hard look at that and says, you know, the business model is that you have a vice president in charge of the latrine and a vice president in charge of the front door. And okay, you can get too many of those. But we did feel we needed an inward-looking vice president, a guy who minds the P's and Q's, dots the I's and crosses the T's.
Yes.
And if you look at the job description of the NMRA vice president, it is that he oversees Chattanooga, our headquarters. Now, we have a crackerjack paid business manager named Jenny Hendricks. Oh, thank goodness for Jenny. But we also need a guy that could be there to help and tends to look at financial sheets and understand them and all that. Same time, we need a guy that's looking out at regions and divisions to try to drive the value of the NMRA down to that level, because there's very little of it we can deliver at national level. So we now have a vice president administration. It's David Thornton, who was the director from the central area. We also have a vice president, Bill Kaufman, who is vice president of special projects, and he's going to be looking at SIG relations, at region division relations. He's been working for the last year on a region and division handbook. Even that sounds simple, but if you've ever been involved in region conventions and politics, when the national comes up with a great idea and goes to region presidents and says, here's the way to do it, they tell you to take a hike. Each one of the NMRA regions is a separate corporation. It's not just a corporation with these divisions. It is a separate corporation for every region. What that means is that they might want to hear from each other, but not from us. So this division and region handbook that Bill's working on is all examples of best practices and things that didn't work.
Good idea, yeah.
But it's all from other regions and divisions. It's not from national tell them how to do it. So this 2 vice president model that supports that kind of stuff means that there's a whole new attitude at national that, yeah, we understand you, we've heard you, that we're not running the show, you are, we're here to support you. And we may even have a 3rd vice president. If you've ever been in public relations and you show up with a business card that says Director of Public Relations, they don't return your calls.
Right.
But if it says Vice President of Corporate Communications, you might get a call back. Maybe we need another vice president for that. Maybe. We may find in 2 years that this idea didn't work and we just need one vice president. We don't know. But unless we try some of these things, it's going to be your dad's Oldsmobile, and we don't want that anymore. There isn't even an Oldsmobile anymore. Why is that our business model? So we're really looking forward to branding a new NMRA and that we're delivering content to go with it.
Very good. It's very fascinating. It's great to see the NMRA and the things that you're doing now for the future. Very exciting. So this is Joe Fugate with Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine, Tony Koester at the NMRA National Convention in Milwaukee.